The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, it's Lara here from the Event Tech Tribe. If someone could jump in and give me a wee pop in the question panel and just let me know that you can hear me all right. You can hear me, cool. Thanks, Brian. Awesome. Right, we have got a few minutes to go. I'm just going to let the last of you guys trickle in. I know some of you are probably finishing up with meetings, so I'm just going to mute myself and we will get going in a couple of minutes. Thanks, everyone. Welcome to everyone that's just joined. I'm going to give you a couple more minutes just to get the last of you guys in. I know some of you are probably finishing up with meetings, so we'll see you in a couple minutes. Alrighty, let's crack into it. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I'm assuming you can all hear me, but I will keep going otherwise, unless someone says. But yeah, as I said earlier, my name is Lara Simmons. I work with the Event Tech Tribe, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys today. Welcome back to anyone that has joined us at one of these webinars before. To all of you new folks, the Event Tech Tribe, we run monthly webinars as part of the Event Intelligence webinar series, as you can probably see on the screen there. And this webinar series is all about providing event planners and marketers with helpful content that we think you'll find useful. So if you can see on the screen, we are talking at this month's webinar about those nightmarish moments, the common on-site disasters that we either have experienced or those ones that keep you up at night thinking about what could go wrong. And joining us to talk about them is Greg Lazzaro of TRC. He is potentially the most qualified person in the room to talk about this at the moment. He has been running TRC for 20 years. He's had 20 years experience in this stuff. And he's developed TRC into an award-winning, industry-leading company that specializes in event technology, and specifically those on-site services as well. That's his jam. So TRC is a member of the Event Tech Tribe, and for those of you that aren't familiar with us, we are a collaborative family of event tech companies that work together both at a technical level, but also at a customer level. So I'm going to hand it over to Greg very shortly. I am going to let him run this webinar. He's going to talk to you about what he knows, and hopefully give you guys some tips and tricks before you get into your events. And I will be facilitating Q&A at the end of this webinar. So if you guys have any questions that you pop into your mind, chuck them in the question box that you should see on your panel that you're looking at the moment, and we will endeavour to ask those for you at the end of the webinar. To anyone that has to leave early for meetings or whatever, we know you guys are busy people. This is being recorded, so we will send this out to you guys at a later date. So yeah, that's it from me. I will hand over to Greg now, who is calling from New York, I think. I'm in New Zealand, by the way, so if you can hear birds, it's really early. So yeah, apologies for that. They're waking up too. Greg, can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. All right, handing over to Greg now. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Lara, for the introduction. And wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. As Lara said, I've been in the event space. It's actually closer to 25 years, so I'm getting up there. And founded TRC 15 years ago, co-founded it with my business partner, Steve Cooper. And through that time, we've done thousands of events where we provided on-site technology. And we've had sort of a VIP seat, a view to some of the industry's greatest disasters. So we're going to sort of summarize some of those in this and share with you what we've seen, ways to avoid them, and what to do when they happen and you can't avoid them. So, as I said, we've seen it all, and while we haven't seen this, we've seen things like it. And one of the things that we've done to sort of steady ourselves through that process is kept a mantra, sort of a compass, if you will. And while we love you, the event planners, and you're extremely important to us, we know that the most important thing we can do is to focus on the experience that your attendees have. And if we do that, we're really serving you the best way. So, while the suppliers should put you first, and we'll put you first all the way up to the event, once we get there, we have to all shift into attendee mode, right? And making sure that their experience is good. So through the dramas that we're going to go through and the thousands more you've likely seen, we're going to show you what to do when they happen. We'll give you some of the greatest hits and maybe some challenges you haven't faced. So let's get started. I'm going to start with one that is near and dear to my heart. It's something that we've seen a lot in many events, and that is the on-site reg desk when people show up as being understaffed and undereducated. And I want to start by saying here that first impressions really count. Think about when you turn up to an event and you walk up to what is really the welcoming committee, and if you think about it, that's what it is. They're really the face, the front line of your event, and staff is few and far between, or they don't know which lanyards you should get or what swag to give you, where the reception breakfast is, or even the nearest restroom is. And it seems obvious, but it's a reality we see in our business every day. And think about it, when the attendees come to you, they've often gotten off of a long flight. They're stressed. They're talking to a spouse who's stressed. They've forgotten something. They've got upset kids on the other end. In fact, they're usually talking to them or to someone in the office they forgot to, forgot something with, and they're on the phone as they walk up. So think about that and their experience, and then they walk up and they have a bad experience at check-in. So one of the things that we always say is that if that experience is bad, it really sets the tone, good or bad. But if it's bad, guess what? It's too hot in all the rooms, the coffee's terrible, These are the things that they could really affect. So some tips on how to avoid them. And some of these may seem simple, but they're really important. And a lot of the theme to a lot of this is going to be pre-planning, which is great since you're planners. But one of the things we recommend is that you use your own team whenever possible. So this seems, again, somewhat obvious, but we oftentimes see in our business, people who are leaving registration completely up to temps or someone who hasn't really been educated or briefed, doesn't know the registration rules, doesn't know the different attendee types, doesn't know the answers to a lot of important questions. And in our experience, almost all the other nightmares that happen on event day are just made worse by this. So when you can, use your, you be the person who is leading that charge, guiding everyone and telling them what to do. If it can't be you, find a leader, find somebody who is personable, knowledgeable, understands the registration system, understands when things are starting, knows the agenda inside and out. You need a leader there. You cannot leave this first experience to chance and to somebody who doesn't really know what's going on. And so while you'll have lots of other people there, leave the less than awesome people to do some tasks, to reassign to some tasks that are more suitable to their skills. You want your shiniest, happiest, most efficient crew at the point of registration. And review and plan people flow. Signage matters, and think this through. Think about how much happens at the registration counter. Should check-in be a multi-step process? Should swag pickup be in a different location than badge pickup? Should they check in one place, walk over their badge to another? What's the flow like? Is it obvious? Is it confusing? You can really mitigate the long lines by directing people to the correct location, where the staff can be most helpful. And again, your on-site technology partner, your registration partner, should really help you navigate these important steps. You know, after all, anyone that's providing the technology for you and doing the registration for you on site should have hundreds of, if not thousands of experiences to and understanding people flow and know how things go. But this is often overlooked. And maybe one of the more important things is preparation with a registration document. Excuse me. Answers to FAQs, codes for the lanyards, holders, which books to hand out, which giveaways are happening. This is something that you want well documented, and it should be gone over with your team. It should be sitting next to them, to each person who's ready to hand things out. There's lots of great examples out there of people that have done it, and it is really a difference maker when it comes to being prepared and having a seemingly very educated staff. Even if they didn't understand these things 15 minutes before registration open, it'll go a long way, especially on the FAQs, the things that people are always asking. What's the Wi-Fi? Where are the bathrooms? Or where's the breakfast? Is there parking to be validated? Those kinds of things. And finally, we'll talk about something that we also recommend is a soft registration opening. This is really a good way for both the people and the technology to settle in. Love to say that every time the doors open, all the technology is flawless, no printers ever jam, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. But the reality is, it's a show, and things go wrong. And so you want to try and find any of the things that could go wrong, not when 1,000 people show up for a reception breakfast, but rather in a soft opening where maybe even unadvertised, where the registration hours are one thing, but you're going to, inevitably people will show up early. So really, really good idea to do a soft opening whenever you can. Moving on to nightmare number 2, and if you've been in the business even a short time, you're familiar with this, and a speaker doesn't show. So we've all seen this, and while it's rare on an everyday basis, it does happen. And there's no excuse that's good enough for you, the meeting planner. But I've known speakers who have had travel issues with airlines and been in car accidents or gotten the flu. They put the wrong date in their calendar. They had a family emergency. A speaker no-show, it's more common for small groups for sure that aren't paying for the presenters, using local executives for the program, and professionals typically, since they make their living serving the client in this way, they'll move mountains to get to the event. And professional speakers work with meeting planners every day, so they understand and respect the nuances that go into a meeting. But it can still happen. Events of any size can scramble to fill a spot. So based on that, just a couple of things to note here. Always have a plan B. Again, you're going to hear this theme throughout. A backup, especially for key speakers. So I've worked with a lot of organizations who have a go-to professional speaker, a group of speakers on speed dial. They're ready to go for every event in case there's a last-minute speaker. And oftentimes it's an attendee who's going to be there, who's got a relationship with the association or the corporate meeting planner. You might think this isn't something that happens very often, but I knew of one person who's filled in 7 times in the last 4 years in a last minute situation. And last minute could be a few days, it could be the day of the event, it could be several hours. And once she was even pulled from the audience to deliver a 45-minute keynote with about 10 minutes notice. That's really rare, but boy, it's really good to have somebody who can step up and fill a lot of different slots. Also, tap the resources that you have. Look at your event agenda. Look who's speaking. Can they fill in another slot? Are they an expert on multiple topics? Your past speakers, your future speakers. A multi-day industry event will have a full docket of speakers who are already presenting or able to present at the last minute. And look to see whose program could be upgraded from a breakout to a keynote. That's something that where people are really underutilized in a lot of cases, and they could deliver a more powerful presentation. And it's easier to fill in somebody who's doing an invitation with less. A session with less content. So that's something to think about. And also, we like to say, make it a networking opportunity. Turn the speakerless meeting into a network speed dialing bonanza if you have to. You encourage people to make more contacts, it extends the reception time, and once everyone's seated, they can introduce themselves in a round table. There's lots of ways to utilize that session room if a speaker doesn't show. And remember, one of the main reasons that people attend these events is for networking opportunities. So if all else fails, you can turn that session where a speaker doesn't show into a network opportunity where you can have a think tank around that session content and gives people a powerful time of networking and talking about best practices and those kinds of things. So that is a good fallback if you can't fill that slot. Moving on to number 3 is a power outage. So power outages rarely happen, but they do happen. And Marie-Claire Andrews, who's one of our fearless leaders in the Event Tech Tribe, was running a hybrid event with locations simultaneously in broadcasting speakers in Tehran, in Sydney, and in Auckland. And the power went out in Sydney, and the whole city was dark. It's really the ultimate nightmare when you've got no power at all. So how to cope with that? Well, Marie-Claire chose vodka, and that can work depending on how early in the day it is, but doesn't always solve the problem. So it's, one of the things too is I was in an event where it happened earlier this year at a 3-day conference, and on the last day of the conference, the power in the hotel went out about 9:30 in the morning, and the electricity stayed off all day, or at least until I had left at 4:30 in the afternoon. It was a transformer that blew, so it wasn't the hotel's fault, but it happens. So how to avoid these and what to do when they do happen. One of the best things you can do is communicate in advance. Again, familiar theme, right? Preparation. So what does it mean to communicate in advance? First, your hotel and convention employees, they're trained for this. So make sure you know their plan and communicate it to your attendees in advance of what to do in case of a power outage. This can be done in a number of ways. The mobile app is a great way to do that. Your event marketing and marketing automation is a great way to do that. So those are things that that are really important, because people panic when the power goes out, when things like that happen. So the more you can communicate in advance, the better off you're going to be. You have that message prepared to go out with a push of a button. Again, the mobile app is a great way to do this. There's lots of ways, but people, if they're using it and you've promoted it properly, communicating these types of things is a great way to do it through the mobile app. And remember that sessions can continue without power. Brief your presenters and tell them to be prepared to give oral presentations without the benefits of the slides or microphones. And later they'll be able to add these back in by way of your team on site stringing extension cords together or bringing in portable generators. This is you can turn something negative into a positive if people are prepared, and it'll be something to talk about instead of a true disaster. And always, again, train your staff in advance. The people who are most important, whether it's your registration staff, other volunteers, people, session moderators, whoever it is that's going to be on site, they should know the plan in advance and what their role is when the lights go out. I mean, it will happen. If you do it long enough, it'll happen, but you can turn that into something to laugh about later if everyone's prepared. So another that is nightmare that's near and dear to my heart are long lines that happen at registration, at checking in. This is Comic-Con in New York, and no matter what you do at events like this, there are going to be queues. It's inevitable, whether it's Apple doing a launch or the Comic-Cons of the world. It doesn't have to be a disaster. It can. You could turn it into a positive for sure, if it has to happen, and if it does, try and look on the bright side. It's an opportunity for engagement, or you can make it an opportunity. It's not that often that you get so many people right in front of you that can't go anywhere. But looking at the bright side isn't going to make them feel any better. So let's talk about some of the ways to mitigate that. Disaster avoidance. Registration confirmations is a great way to do this. So you work hard in your registration and to build that, to make it great, to make the event marketing go well. A lot of people don't use registration confirmation still today, and it's a great way to communicate to people to expedite the check-in process. You want to have people who have done their job, who have printed their confirmations or have them on their phones. You want them to be able to walk right up and check in without incident. And remember, we've often say many times that the act of checking in, getting your badge, should not be an event. It should be very forgettable because it happened fast. So sending those registration confirmations out can really help make that process quicker. Having check-in kiosks is something that is popular and getting more popular, where you have various kiosks that are out in the area where people can walk up, sort of randomly check in, and then walk over and pick up a badge, not have to stand in a long line, but they're moving from a kiosk to a badge pickup station, and just like at the airport. And that is a sense of, okay, I'm not standing in this long line. I'm in a short line here. I'm in a short line there. But perception is everything when it comes to that. One of the other options that is becoming very popular is satellite check-in. We're seeing more and more of this, and we're providing more of it. If you think about the fact that your people are likely checking into 2, 3, 4, 5 host hotels the night before or the day of registration, but maybe hours before it opens, it's nice to have a satellite check-in where they can get their badge and avoid the rush, and help you keep staffing down and keep long lines from forming by having satellite check-in stations or kiosks at the hotels. It's a great way to mitigate the big lines on event day and when Reg opens. It also helps you to be able to do that sort of soft opening and work out some of the kinks. And also staff for peaks. All the time we see people who say, yep, I have 4,000 attendees and we're going to have 10 check-in stations, and so we should be fine. We'll have 10 people there. But the reality is, 3 of those 4,000 people are going to show up in the first 6 hours. So you've got to staff for peaks, whether it's equipment, whether it's people. You can always tear it down, but you can't assume that because you have 3 days of check-in, 10 people or 10 stations is going to be enough. You want to make sure you're ready for the big peaks. Now, sometimes, as we said before, you can't avoid some of these lines. So one of the ways that when lines can't be avoided that you can do to sort of keep people up and keep people happy through that is through a DJ. Music is a great way. You know, we all want to tap our feet when we hear a song, or maybe sets a mood. It can definitely set the tone. We've seen a lot of people successfully have DJs right outside the registration area and check in, and you get a good feeling and you don't mind being in line as much. It also promotes conversation when there's background noise, so people in line will spend a lot of time conversing and not realize how long they've been standing in that line. You can go as far as refreshments. Refreshments are great. People walking through the lines offering some type of refreshment is, we've seen it happen. It's really good. When people do it, they're always surprised and they're excited. It's something great that they're able to experience. And then having those same people, whether it's the people handing out refreshments or line monitors, converse with the attendees, walk up, ask them questions, where they're from, when they got in, just really doing things to facilitate conversation can help really pass that time. Okay. This is another one that I think everyone faces from time to time, especially now, is too much technology. So there are limitless options when it comes to using technology today at your events. And lately, there's been a big influx, as I'm sure you've all seen, of startups and entrepreneurs, venture capitalists who are working together to develop new solutions for the events industry. In fact, our industry is seeing more advancements in technology in the last 2 years than we've seen in the last 20. So this is really something that is coming on strong. And as an event planner, what do you do? What do you choose? There's augmented and virtual reality, wearable technology and bots. There's drones, sophisticated mobile apps. There's new attendee engagement softwares. There's digital content managers. These are just a few of some of the technologies that have really emerged over the last several years. So what should you adopt for your events? And I'm going to really ask the question, more importantly, why? So as it's hard for anyone to tell you what you need for your event, but when evaluating technology in your event, we're going to challenge you to not think about what you need, but think about what you're trying to accomplish, why. So we'll start with some of the don'ts. Don't adopt technology because it's cool or trendy. Okay, there's a lot of cool, trendy technology out there. But remember, technology can fail. If you don't need to implement it, don't tempt fate. Don't use it if you don't need to use it. If it's not solving a primary problem. So if the primary purpose is entertainment, not a good reason to have technology. You've got lots of other ways to entertain your guests. It sounds simple, but people do it because it's cool, or do it because it's trendy, or do it because it's entertaining. And when it fails, you've got egg on your face. So technology should be used when it needs to be used, and not as just merely a form of entertainment. If it doesn't solve a problem or enhance the experience, you shouldn't use it. It sounds simple, but the deliverables that technology is there to provide should really be either to solve some sort of problem that you're having, or really make the experience better for your attendees. If it's not doing one of those two things as a primary purpose, you have to really evaluate whether or not you should have it for your event. Let's talk about some reasons why you should adopt technology. We'll say it's all about your event tech goals. One of the hashtags we post under in the event tech tribe, there should be the technology should have a real goal in mind. So the example, better communication, mobile app, again, I'll go back to. It's green. It keeps up with last minute changes. It saves money on printed materials. It's a quick communicator. These are things that solve problems and create a better experience. So it's obvious why so many people have adopted the mobile app as an example. Attendee engagement. You may have an event where there is a lot of material to learn. In those materials, it's really hard to keep it fresh. I'm sure some of you are sleeping right now. or not paying attention or doing something else. Having attendee engagement technology is a great way to keep people up to speed and keep them engaged and keep them sort of as part of the conversation. Our partner Glisser in the Event Tech Tribe is a great way, it has a great product offering to be able to keep attendees engaged. Creating efficiencies. Things like content management, project management. Our partners in the Event Tech Tribe in Hub, and our partner in the Event Tech Tribe Event Ops. These companies exist to make the planning process more efficient. So this is something that, again, it solves a problem. It helps create efficiencies. And then data that can be measured. So if you look at one of the most important things that come out of your event is the data that you can gain. This is very important to your marketing groups. It should be important to you to understand what worked and what didn't. Did people spend a lot of time in sessions? Did they spend a short time in sessions? This can be done through surveys. This can be done through RFID attendance tracking or wearable technology. There's a lot of different ways to collect data collected through all of your technology points. Your mobile app, Swoogo, our partner in the Event Tech Tribe, captures so much data during the registration process. All of this data put together can be used to measure the success of your event. So that is a great piece of technology to adopt. And I'll plug up a partner one more time, in InsightXM in our Event Tech Tribe, who does just that. They grab all of the data from so many of the various technology sources and put it together to help you to be able to create valuable metrics to measure the success of your event. Those are things that you should be thinking about when you adopt technology. So moving on to one that probably never happens at your events, which is negative and offensive comments on social media, such as Twitter. It's a great back channel and it's a great promotional tool. It's a good means of expanding your audience outside of the room you're in. It's good for content creation that costs you virtually nothing. But Twitter is, well, it's on the internet, and face it, it's the wild, wild west on the internet. And like many of these things, prevention is the best cure here. You can use products like, again, Glisser for your back channel display of tweets. You can moderate them before they go out, but it doesn't stop them from going onto the internet. So what do? So let's talk about some of the ways to avoid some of these and deal with them as they are inevitable. A dedicated monitor with the authority to reply. So make sure someone on your team is responsible for checking social media, things like Twitter, all the time. It's got to be their top priority. And make sure they have the authority to reply as necessary. You could set up Google alerts for your conference, for your keynote speakers, your theme, and for the theme, and send those to the Twitter person that you have assigned. It's all great if the offensive comments mention your event Twitter handle or use the event hashtag. You'll see them immediately, but you won't see all of the bad things if there are bad things. And Google Alert is a perfect way to combat this. Also, we'll say dominate the hashtag, meaning that as fast as things pass through, if you're really dominating the hashtag and constantly posting, you'll push out offensive material pretty quickly. So if you're retweeting cool stuff and someone's constantly doing that, and you're adding your own content, it'll quickly move past some of the offensive posts. And we'll say this: you've got to respond, but you've got to respond quickly and you've got to respond calmly. So even in the real world, when you're shouting and swearing and you're kind of losing your mind or even close to crying, as I've done at several events, we all know it's hard not to take it personally when someone leaves a bad comment or it's rude about your hard work. And it gets even harder when you've been doing your best to satisfy the customers or the attendees and to make the event awesome. But you need to acknowledge the tweet or the offensive comment in three ways. You need to thank them, even if that's not how you feel. You need to apologize for the inconvenience. Sorry to hear that you feel this way. I'm sorry that you didn't like our speaker. Sorry that the coffee was bad. and encourage them to send you a private message and to stop the bashing in a good way. So if you can start a conversation, oftentimes some of those offensive comments may really be important, and while they didn't deliver them really well, you want to know. So engage them. That's hard. I could probably not do it, but thank God I don't have to. But you'll need to. So it's we think this is some good advice to help you. Moving right along. This is one that I've seen happen rarely, but it's happened. And when it does happen, it can cause a really big problem. So, of course, you're going to conduct a final tie-down meeting with the venue team, the logistics people, the concierge, catering. But the truth is, sometimes a door gets blocked, and sometimes it's a main door, and people can't get in, and all of a sudden, where you were expecting busloads of people to be dropped off to walk in, they can't get in that door. So one thing you've got to do when that happens is have your go-to team ready. No matter what happens, if you can handle this in the preparation stage and get in front of it, it's going to make things a lot better. And don't forget, people are going to show up early, so you want to make sure that you've got that figured out. And they'll show up early, and if you're not prepared, it'll shape their opinion for the rest of the day and likely the rest of the event. So, what to go over with your team: people, flow, and peaks. So once again, this is one where if you've got a main door or a main time, let's say 1,000 people are showing up for a opening keynote that's being delivered, and they're being bussed in from 3 satellite hotels, or they're walking in a main door, and that's the door that's going to get the most traffic. You should know where the next entrance could be and have that planned out, so that you can reroute buses, through radio. You can reroute signage for what's going on. You should not have to be figuring out where people are going to enter on the biggest places. You can't do it everywhere, but certainly you can do it in some of the biggest entrances. So the next thing is be prepared for the venue to support you on that. Venue logistics manager should be on speed dial. So whoever is going to be responsible for opening up those doors, unlocking other doors, they need to be ready to go in an instant. You can't wait to get them, because when people show up and you've got a crowd that can't go anywhere, that's really when you look bad. The event is disorganized. People get frustrated. So you want to be able to adapt, and the best way to do that is to know. And then again, the advanced plan, having an advanced plan B for the main entrances is really important. Again, you can't do it for everything, but on the main entrances of the event, you need to make sure that that there's an alternate route, and you should do the walkthrough yourself. So if this door doesn't work the day 1,000 people are showing up, or the hour 1,000 people showing up, walk yourself through the path that they're going to go to. Make sure it's logical, make sure it makes sense, make sure you would have signs ready to go or people to direct them to the next location. Doing it yourself is really important, because you'll see how easy it is, how hard it is, and what you need in order to make that happen, should it happen. Moving on, we've got the ever popular security breach on site. These can be really funny. And hopefully, if you're prepared for them, they'll just be something to laugh about. And I've been to many events where there was some type of security breach. Most of them are small. Others were near disasters. And it's one of the last things I think event planners think about as far as preparing for it. But if you take the right steps, it will be something to laugh about at the end of the day, the daily debrief. If not, it'll be something that you'll likely not be able to live down. So let's talk about some of the ways to avoid it. If you haven't heard me say this, prevention first. So you want to know if you're in an accredited venue, and Safe Place Corporation is a great resource on this. They run the program, so you're going to be able to see what's in place, what type of security they have. It's a good place to research the venue. will tell you that using the badge, it's use number 103. The badge has a lot of uses, but certainly it is an identifier, and it should be an identifier, and it should be something that people around you should be trained, that if someone's not wearing a badge, they should be asked what they're doing there, whether it's in a session room or in a cordoned off or sectioned off location that just should have event people in it. People should be trained to look for that. It's one of the many things in what we'll call layered, what should be a layered combination of systems. But it's something that you can quickly identify at a distance. That person isn't wearing a badge, should they be here. Programmable locks. What's a programmable lock? Like your hotel key. We often, I remember doing an event for a school board association where somebody had gotten a hold of one of the keys to the show office, and they basically cleaned the show office out of about 6 laptops that were there. And instead of having they dealt with the problem, but what they really didn't do was deal with the fact that the person had still had that key. So not only did they get those 6 laptops cleaned out, while they went around and they looked for everyone, they also had that somebody else used that key, must have been handed off, and they were cleaned out again later. So being able to quickly change locks, quickly change the keying system when something happens there is really important. Don't lose your head. That's something that is that's really important, that you know to call on this right away. If it does happen, stay calm. Cooler heads are going to prevail here, and enact that risk plan. Call your venue professionals, and remember, a cool head is going to keep the attendees safe. All right, we're getting there, close to the end. This is one of my favorites because we see it all the time. Volunteers are worse than useless, and it's not just limited to volunteers. Temps fall into that into that bucket. So one of the things that you want to think about is, no matter what, whoever it is, whether it's temps or whether it's volunteers, they should be prepared and briefed on their individual role. They need to have a clear understanding of their role and who to contact with questions and what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And most importantly, I'll say, whether it's temps or volunteers or your own staff, they need to feel like their time is worth giving up. They need to feel like they're involved, that what they have to say is meaningful, and you want it to be a rewarding experience for them as well, because it's going to translate to your attendees. So how do you do that, and how do you make that happen? So one of the ways to do it is vision casting. It seems silly, especially when you have temps or volunteers, but you want to share the vision for your event. You want the volunteers who are at the forefront, and oftentimes the people who are facing your attendees, you want them to know what the goals that you have for the event are, how you want the people to feel, whether it's the bag packers, the people who are putting up signage, the people who are directing people, people who are greeting people at a catered lunch or a ticketed only event. You want everyone to understand how the attendees should feel, what it is that you want them to really portray for your event. And they need to know that their contribution is important, that they're part of the bigger picture, and that vision can't be achieved without them. Also, we'll say recognize enthusiasm and feed it. Inevitably, we always have someone at an event who's just a real standout, whether they're a temp or a volunteer, and they're bubbly and they're excited. Utilize those and feed them, give them more responsibility. I've seen many times at events where an event planner relied on someone they didn't know the day before and really relied on them in the event. So be able to spot and recognize somebody who's enthusiastic, organized, and can handle things, and feed them and let them feed the rest of the people around you. And also, culture matters. Think about why you're involving the volunteers, and and what they bring to the event, recognize their ideas, and they've probably got some different skills, different energy levels. It's not just the fact that you're saving money, but you want to make sure that the volunteers that you have aren't useless. You want to make sure that the culture that you're creating around them is one of excitement, is one of, if they see you down or despondent or not present, they're going to feel like they don't need to be present, whether it's emotionally or physically. They'll disappear. They'll do other things. So you want to make sure that that you're keeping a culture up that they can emulate, that you emulate it for them, and that they can they'll follow. And this goes for whether you have a single volunteer, you've got 1,000 people. Everybody wants to feel like it's worth it, that they're there, and people want to help. We're as a people, we want to help. We want to do something that's valuable. One really important tip is clean house quickly. We've seen lots of events where there's been one person who's just been negative, or just was inappropriate, and you want to clean them out very quickly. If it's a temp, call a temp agency, send them home. You better to be down a person than have negativity spread. If they're one of your staffers or they're a volunteer, explain that you want to listen to their side, explain that you want to understand what they're thinking, and you can thank them for their time so far if they're in a critical position, but you need to get that negativity out of there as quickly as possible. Yelling doesn't work. I try that every day. I still try it. It doesn't work. Bribery's okay, but you want to make sure that if one of those two things doesn't work, you just get them out of there as quickly as possible. And finally, last but not least, one of my favorites, internet goes down. So this isn't going to be a whole pre-planning conversation. That's a different webinar all by itself. Things like how much Wi-Fi you should have and how many devices you're going to connect and how many access points. All of those things are really important to ensure internet doesn't go down in advance, but there's too many to cover in this part of it. And again, that could be a webinar all by itself, is preparation with the technology. But the nightmare happens whether you're prepared or whether you're not prepared. The internet does go down, and maybe it's because the power goes out and you get a 2-for-1 bang on your on-site nightmares, or maybe the venue didn't pay the bill, or maybe there's just too many people on it. Either way, it happens. So what do? You want to make sure, excuse me, your technology partners are prepared. So I'll go to registration, something we have to face. If internet goes down, you better be able to print badges, because it's going to go down when you're printing badges. So you want to make sure that you've got an offline backup for that, so that you can print badges. You need to make sure you can still capture attendance tracking, even if it's not being uploaded in real time. You want to make sure that your technology partners aren't going to be able to stop collecting valuable data. If you can't get to it now, you can get to that data later, but you need to make sure that you're getting it. The mobile app, it should run well, very well on a regular cellular connection, so that you can communicate. So you want to be able to communicate through the mobile app a message of internet's down. Make sure you are, that you've got your cellular data turned on, but it should be an app that can run very well in a cellular data connection. And then have a backup for online content. Presenters should not be relying on the internet in order to do presentations. So whether it's static pages or local web pages, you want to make sure that your event is not completely reliant on internet. We all need it. We think about it, we almost can't get around, they can't get through a day without using it. But the fact is, you cannot have your event completely rely on internet. If you do, it will fail. I've almost never gone to an event where there hasn't been some blip at a minimum on the internet, and in worst case, just gone for an entire day. So you need to make sure that that your event is not totally reliant on internet. So I'll conclude with a George a General George Patton quote, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. So it's okay to freak out in advance. It's okay to go through a lot of pain in advance of the event. We do it every day for our customers. We do a lot of hard work here, like you do, and that is something that that if you can put that hard work in and go through some of the pains in advance, it'll really keep you from sweating on the day of the event. It holds true in our industry. Patton said it, but it really holds true in our industry. Sometimes at the end of the event, it feels like we've gone through a war, and but if you're prepared for it, you will get through it. And basically, what we're saying here is dry runs wherever you can do them are good things to do. Again, whether it's the mock entrance to something that's been closed off, a soft opening of the registration, the internet goes down plan, the pushing out of communications if power goes down. Being able to test run those things, mocking an upset attendee and how to handle it. The more dry runs you can do, the more people are going to feel prepared. So we'll give you the 6 or 7 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Silly, but it's something. It's just a little motto you can keep in your head. It's something that really works. It holds true. Know your team. Make sure they know you. For big projects, people from different teams in the organization will come together to organize an event. If it's a big program, you're going to have a lot of leaders, and it's likely that some of the folks that you're working with are unaware of the risk assessment. They're unaware of what your plans are. You want to make sure that you know them, you know who's going to be able to step up, and that you know that they each have their own areas of responsibility and they're ready to move forward. And it'll be okay. At the end of events, I felt very beat up sometimes. I'm sure you guys have as well. And it's hard. And there's a reason it's the 5th most stressful job. It's year over year. It's a really hard thing to do when you put so much work and effort into it. But you got to remember that it will be okay. Your attitude is contagious. Doesn't matter how you're feeling inside. Be positive as you can on the outside. People will rally around you, especially in the events place. I can't believe how many people I see step up to the plate when things go wrong. So remember, it'll be okay. And then lastly, we'll just leave you with our friend Paul Cook, a friend of the tribe, runs a great blog, Event Risk. eventriskblog.com, and there you can get some really good tips on preparation for the event. So I want to thank everybody for joining and being on here today. I'd like to open it up with any questions that you may have for us.
Thanks so much, Greg. It's Lara here again. Yeah, that was fantastic. So much content in a really quick amount of time. So I'm hoping that everyone is going to come away with at least something. I found that really valuable. Thank you. So I do have a couple questions that have come in. So guys, just pop them through into that question panel if you have them. If we can't get your questions, we will try and follow up with a blog, or we'll email you directly with some advice and expert advice from Greg himself. So first of all, I've got one come through, which is, how do you find the best temp staff?
Oh, great question. So you said the best temp staff?
Yeah.
So, yep. So obviously, every city has got good temp staffs for events. But one of the things that you want to think about when the term best is really interesting, because what is best? If you've got an event where technology is highly used, maybe it's a really young crowd, don't be afraid to talk to the Convention and Visitors Bureau if you're using them, or someone like that when you're hiring temp staff for an event. Don't be afraid to say, our crowd is really young. We're looking for really energetic people, or we're looking for people who can handle high stress, or people who are really familiar with technology. So again, what I will say is, you want to think about the goals. What is the goal for your event? What is the clientele like? And you want to try and find people that are most like those attendees, that can most relate to those attendees. If there's people who have an entertainment background, and there is, and there's a big entertainment value to the event, or the attendees themselves, you want to try and match as much as you can people who might actually have interest in that content, and people who are really well suited to your attendees.
Nice, well said. I've got a couple more. One that's just come in, TRC rocks. Not sure if that's a question, but appreciated nevertheless. Another one here, which is quite relevant. I know you talked about event tech before. Regarding my event technology, how do I, or do I need to choose an enterprise solution like Cvent for everything to work well together?
Yeah, so you can. Do you need to? Certainly not anymore today. You know, we did a webinar in the Event Intelligence series. I believe it was done by Hub. On the API economy, and that's one of the great things about technology today is that we're all using APIs, so different technologies can interface with each other really, really well. And what I'll tell you is that it's less about what people have under one roof. We always say that you can't be great at everything. So I would tell you sort of in a biased way that what you really want to find when you're evaluating technology is not who's got everything under one roof, but who works really well together, who's got the best product for your need, whether it's a registration or a content management or a reporting or project management or on-site tech, whatever it might be, or audience engagement, doesn't matter. You want to find the best one and make sure that that people can work together really well. Not just systematically through integration and APIs, but also people integration. Companies that have worked well together in the past or have experience working together are going to be more invested in the success of the various technologies that they're interacting with. So I would say the short answer is no, you don't need to use an enterprise solution. There are a lot of great entrepreneurs out there who are running really, really good tech companies and doing something really, really well. And if it were me, I would rather have the best.
Yeah, no, well said. And echoing what you said before as well, you know, think about your event tech goals because at the end of the day, you want to come away feeling like you've chosen the best solution for your event that you've put all this hard work into, right?
Absolutely.
So I've got another couple here. One here that's just come in. What are some types of disasters that tend to befall the most experienced event profs? Is there anything that experience tends to bind us to?
I'm not sure I understood that question. Can
Yeah,
you
yeah.
ask that one more time?
So what are the types of disasters that you see the most experienced event professionals falling into?
Oh, I would say probably even the most experienced event professionals don't think about what's going to happen when everyone shows up to check in and get their badge. Again, it's I see it the most, so it's I'm biased in that way, but I have a lot of experience with it. You know, that is a really a hold your breath moment when registration opens and a sea of people are walking in. And so I think that one of the things that happens even with experienced event planners is they tend to not think about how complicated that process really is. It's just getting a piece of, you know, name on a piece of paper, right? But the name, the rules, the things that go into it, the various registration types, these are things that are not often thought about in terms of how they're going to affect the on-site experience at check-in. So I would say that is something that we see over and over again, and it is certainly in our case, it's our job to educate event planners on the things that we've seen and the things that can go wrong. But that is probably, you know, in my shoes, the thing we see the most is people not being prepared for what's going to happen when the doors open.
Nice, nice. You heard it here first. Cool. Last question, but definitely not least. We've got someone coming in. Say, what is your biggest tip for someone running their first event? So welcome to that newbie. Welcome to the industry.
Yeah. Biggest, I don't know that I can just do one. So let me put in two. First of all, take a deep breath, strap yourself in because it's going to be really rough no matter how well you plan. But I would tell you that you want to join groups, people who understand and ask a lot of questions. There is a lot of great resources out there for event planners, and the event planning industry is a very social industry. People are more than willing to share best practices. So you want to ask a lot of questions. No event planner thinks any question is stupid if they're a good event planner, and you should ask lots of them and get yourself in a group that you can, in some type of social group, whether it's, you know, is as disconnected as just following a blog, but ideally in some type of interactive group where you can ask a lot of questions and get the experience of the people who have been there before you, because there's not a whole lot new under the sun when it comes to the problems that you'll face at event planning, and the community has seen it all. So take advantage of the resources around you for sure.
Nice, nicely said, and good luck to that person who put that question in. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all of our questions. If anyone has anything that they pops up in your mind after this webinar ends, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. I do see someone's just asked, will the slides be available? Yes, they will, and we have recorded this, so you will be able to follow up, rewatch it, relive the experience, or share it with your colleagues and industry friends. Cool. So that's it from us. Thanks again, Greg. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And we'll see you guys next month.
Thanks, Lara, and thanks everyone for joining today. Have a great day.
Cool. Thank you, guys.